What was the timeline like? Like when did you go on hiatus and when did you resume the touring?
So we found out that we were going back on tour in the summer of 2021. That's when we found out, like, this is when we're finally going out. These are our dates. You know, it's confirmed. We're good to go. And then we started back in rehearsals. Oh goodness, I think it was like beginning of October or end of September of 2021. And then we started the tour, like officially performances. We started mid-October in Memphis, Tennessee. And now, as we are here today, we're at the end of January, and we're still going. You know, we're still here, so it's all good.
What was the moment when you realized that everything had changed?
When we were in Dallas, Texas, in March of 2020, and we started seeing that Broadway was shutting down, and I think the overall conversation, at least in the United States, about COVID was, oh well, it hasn't gotten here yet, so we're fine. It's over there somewhere. You know, we're fine. And then once we started to realize, like, oh no, it's like, okay, now it's back, and now it's in the States, and it's spreading. And now with our industry, with the performance industry, we're seeing that all these different concerts are being canceled and Broadway shows were being shut down. And then once, that started happening, I think that's when all of us on the tour were like, okay, I think we're in danger here. I think we're going to be next soon. But even then, we didn't really know how severe this was going to be, right? We just thought, okay, like, maybe we'll be out. Yeah, I remember asking my company manager, because we have trunks that we travel all our stuff in. I said, well, how much should I take? Like, how long are we going to be away from here? And, he did the best he could. He's like, I would say maybe a month, probably, and that's the best we could do. And, fast forward 18 months, that's how long we were away. But I would say, like, to answer your question, though, it was that day in March when we got word that we were shutting down, that we knew, okay, I think we're in, like, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really bad. And it was. It turned out to be pretty bad. So
many people give up their apartments and put their stuff in storage when they sign on for tour. Did you have where to go during the hiatus?
Yeah, so I was lucky in that so my wife and I, we were both working before the pandemic. We were both on tours, and she was doing another show. And so we had a renter in our apartment for that entire time. And then once the pandemic hit, we were like, well, we don't feel safe being in New York right now because the numbers were really bad in New York. So we asked the subletters if they wanted to stay for a little while longer. And they said yes. So we had somebody renting our apartment, which was great. But we were actually lucky in that both my wife and I were from Miami originally. So we have lots of family in Miami. So we were very lucky that my wife had a family member who had a spare apartment available, and that's where we stayed for the first 6 months. And then after the 6 months, we went back home to New York, and that's where we rode the rest of the pandemic. We were back home in New York City, and it actually felt kind of nice to just be home for a long period of time. I think we got a little used to it. So we were fine, all things considered. We were comfortable. We were taken care of. We had family near us. We were one of the lucky ones as far as that's concerned.
What was it like to be in New York City during the pandemic? I know that so many restaurants left.
Yeah, it was weird, especially going through like Times Square. For anybody who's ever been to Times Square, it's always so busy, and there's people, tourists everywhere, and there's like people in funny costumes and things like that. It was a ghost town. There was nobody there. Pardon me as I'm coughing as we're talking about COVID. We're realizing that, man, nobody's out here. It's dead. It's dead here. And then to see the thing that really hit me hard was seeing all the lights on Broadway turned off. That was very jarring for me. That was sad because, Broadway is why I fell in love with New York City to begin with. And and being scared about riding the subway and not going to restaurants and things like that. But then once the vaccine came out, at least on a personal level, like I felt more comfortable because I believe in the vaccine. My wife does too. And once the vaccine came out and we were vaccinated, and once we were able to, we started to feel a little more comfortable being out and about because we felt this sort of, this protection. So it was very weird at first, but with time, the city has started to open up again. Obviously, Broadway's opened up, and I know that has its own troubles right now, but Broadway's opened up. You can eat at restaurants if you're vaccinated. You can, take the subway, all those things. That's kind of back up and running now.
What did you do during the shutdown?
Oh, so a couple of things. One, I started my own online memorabilia business. So I started selling like baseball cards and toys and things that I used to have. So when I was a kid, I collected thousands and thousands of baseball cards, and I had toys that were valuable and things like that. And I was like, well, they're just sitting in my mom's closet in my childhood home. I don't play with them anymore. They're just sitting there. I guess this will keep me busy, right? So I started doing that, and I did okay. And then also, even before I started Come From Away, I had become a licensed real estate agent in New York City. So when I got back to New York, I started doing my real estate work again. And that was very, very helpful. And then I joined Broadway Plus, and I also did a lot of sort of virtual concerts and virtual readings of plays and things like that, just to kind of keep those juices flowing. And then I did a production of a show called Camelot at the Oslo Theater in Florida. And it was one of the first shows put up since once the pandemic hit. And we did a COVID safe outdoor production. So it was very strange. The actors, we were no more than 6 feet or no less than 6 feet apart. And we were all outside in the Florida heat. So it was very interesting, but we were able to do a show, and it was really kind of cool. So I stayed busy as much as I could. I can't sit still. I'm very bad at sitting still and not doing anything.
And what is it like to be back on the road?
It's incredible to be back on the road. It's, well, hold on, let me say, it's great for the heart because I love doing the show. I love the people I work with. I missed them so much, and I missed, doing the show every day. I missed it. But it does still present its challenges because we are still doing this in the middle of a global pandemic, and there's still a lot of fear in our company. Certain places that we visit have less strict mandates. There are people who, and I mean, that's up to them to decide, or I don't get paid the big bucks to do that, to make those mandates happen. But there are definitely levels of discomfort. We want to be safe, but there are moments where we don't feel very safe. And there are things like we fly on planes every Monday, or we get on buses, and sometimes we have to take cars to get from one place to the other. And we're doing the best we can to stay safe. We're always masked up. We get tested 3 times a week, so it's like a brand new version of the tour. Like the first year and a half of the tour, before COVID, it was like a completely different world back then. We'd go to restaurants, and we'd have opening night parties, and we'd have things to celebrate, and we'd go do touristy things. And now it's just sort of like we stay in our hotel rooms. The only time we go out is if it's like a COVID safe thing where we feel comfortable. We can't stage door anymore, so we can't really meet our fans anymore, which is a little sad for us because we love meeting our fans. We love meeting everybody at the stage door. And that's just sad that we can't do that. So it's exciting to be back, but it's definitely a completely different experience now than it was before. So we're getting used to it. And we're trying to be as safe as possible.
So who's responsible for the COVID safety protocols? Is there like a new job title?
Yeah, so we have an entire department called the Health and Safety Department, and their sole purpose, and they travel with us. They're part of the company, and they're lovely. Jamie and Tristan are their names. They basically are in charge of our COVID testing. As soon as we get into the theater, they've already lined up with each city. They arrange a clinic to come and test us, and they're the people who we report to. So if I wake up, let's say I woke up tomorrow and I have cold-like symptoms, or I feel like, I don't feel so great, they're the people I have to talk to first, and then they make sure that I get tested just to make sure that it's not COVID. Because we have to remember that you could still just get a cold. I mean, that's just the thing. But they make sure that when it comes to all things COVID, that everything goes through them, and they are the ones who take care of us. And we're really, really grateful for them. They really go, I mean, above and beyond to make sure that everybody's safe. And, and as soon as somebody gets COVID, they're in isolation. The company takes care of that. As far as that is concerned, we could not feel more protected by our company. They are really, really, really doing a great job of making sure that in the midst of all this craziness that, we're being taken care of. If one of us, God forbid, were to get COVID, which we've had COVID in our company already.
I have read that you had a very challenging week in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so we had a very challenging 2 weeks in Minneapolis. So it even started before Minneapolis. So we were in Toledo, Ohio, and that's when we started getting a couple of cases. And we were like, okay, here we go. And the thing is, I think the big concern for us was, everybody who watches your channel probably has seen the show already. It is a show where we are all very close on stage together. There's not a lot of space, right? We're on planes together, on buses together, all these things. So I think the big concern was, well, if one of us gets it, chances are we're all going to get it because we just are all on top of each other, So then once a couple of cases happened in Toledo, that's when we kind of said, oh, here we go. It's going to start now. This is where the damage is going to be done. And sure enough, days would go by and like 2 more people would test positive, 3 more people would test positive, etc. So the company, what they did, which is, I mean, it's quite incredible, is that they basically reached out to anybody who had ever done Come From Away ever. So, people who were part of the Toronto company, people who were part of the Australian company, people who were part of the UK company, Broadway, even the tour, like people who are no longer with us on the tour. And they just kind of asked, like, what is your availability if we need you? So then we had a few people from these companies come and join us in Minneapolis because we got to a point where a couple of our standbys got sick. So there's no coverage, right? Nobody could play these roles. So they brought in David Shannon from the United Kingdom but he actually lived in the United States now. So he was able to work in the United States. He came in to play Kevin T for a bit. Happy McPartland from Broadway came in. Holly Ann Butler. Yeah, exactly. James Call from Toronto, and also Gino Carr, the original Oz, came in, and that was kind of cool to kind of get to. And they're all lovely human beings. And I was going to mention Holly Ann Butler. I don't know if I did. She's one of the standbys on Broadway. So we've had like this sort of, at one point on stage, we had a representative from each company, each English-speaking company of Come From Away on our tour stage. It was crazy, and to kind of look around and, as soon as we're starting on the Northeast tip of North America, we're just kind of looking around and just saying, oh my God, like new faces from all over the place, and they were all just so lovely and so great because they came in and they only had a day or 2 of rehearsal to kind of remind themselves. You got to remember, Gino and David Shannon hadn't done the show in 2 years. So for them to have 2 days to learn the show again, it's insane. But they did it. They did it. It was great. And we had a great time. And, we were all obviously very scared and worried about our colleagues too. We want to make sure they were safe, but they were safe, taken care of. But yeah, it was a whirlwind. It was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening right now. But we did it. We got through it. And now everybody's back. Everybody's healthy and back. We have a full company again. So it's good.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. It was like, obviously we were just so worried about our colleagues and we wanted to make sure they were okay. But outside of that, like, as one of the ones who, I'm knocking on wood, I didn't get sick. Thank you for that. They just to look around and be like, man, like this is so weird and like fun to watch different people do this. You know what I mean? Like, I've done the show now. We are at like 710 performances of this tour. So to do it with somebody who we'd never done it with before is just exciting, right? It's just new. It's like, okay. And, everybody kind of perked up a little bit because it was just, we're getting new energies, and it was a lot of fun.
Have any positives come out of coronavirus for you, Nick?
Have any positive things come out of coronavirus?
Yeah.
Well, that's a hard question to answer because it's just such a negative thing, right? There's two things I would say that came positive out of it. One is at the very beginning, I got to spend a lot of uninterrupted time with my wife and my dog and my family, because that was something that, like, as a performer that travels as much as I do, I just don't get to have a lot. You know, my wife and I have spent more time apart than together in our marriage, right? So to be able to actually have this time of just waking up, making breakfast together, walking the dog, taking the dog to a park, like these things are just things that we never get to do together, and we got to do it, you know. And then the other thing I would say is it really sort of shifted my perspective on why I do what I do. And I, you know, as far as being a performer, I think I will never take performing in front of an audience for granted ever again. I missed it so much. I missed being a storyteller and sharing the story. There's a lot of things about like the business aspect of what we do that that can taint why we do what we do, or you know, we're no longer the sort of wide-eyed middle school kids who love theater or high school kids who love theater. We are adults who have to provide for our families and things like that, and it's a very different dynamic as you get older. But it sort of brought me back to the very beginning, right? It brought me back to why I loved doing what I do, and it made me miss it. I realized, God, I really miss it. Like I really, really, really miss it. So now I no longer take it for granted. I don't think I ever did take it for granted, but if I ever did, if there was even a moment that I did, that moment's gone. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude to be able to do it. So I would say that's a good thing too, is I shift that. And also, I mean, listen, we're more health conscious now. I think, you know, that's another thing too. I wear my mask all the time, and I've always washed my hands because that's what you should do. You should always wash your hands. But like, I'm hyper aware of it now. And I kind of like that. I like that I haven't had a cold since then. And, I'm like, all right, well, clearly something's working. So I think, being more health conscious has been a good thing too.
And what was the hardest thing for you during this global pandemic?
Oh my gosh. The level of fear, the daily fear of, your life changed. Our lives changed. The way we lived our lives changed. We can't do anything now without being hyper aware of what's around us and who's around us. And our own physical health, we wake up. Before COVID, if I had like a tickle in my throat, or if I blew my nose because I had, I was congested or something, I would think, oh, like it's fine. I blow my nose. But now I'm like, do I have a cold, or is it COVID? Does my back hurt because I'm getting old, or is it COVID? You just start coming up with different scared scenarios in your head. So I miss the sort of carefree aspect of the life before COVID. So I think realizing that our world kind of just went like this for a second, and it still is, we're still kind of getting back there. It feels hard. It's just really, really hard. And then, for me also, it's just at the very beginning, like being worried about seeing my family and trying to make sure they're safe. And my dad, who's no longer with us, he was, very, very sick during the pandemic. He didn't die because of COVID, but COVID didn't help at all. Just worrying about like seeing him and like the dynamic change in the family, because we're always just hyper aware of making sure that we didn't make people sick. And that just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel like the way we want to live our lives, because we want to be able to hug our loved ones and give them a kiss on the cheek and not think twice about it. So that was the hardest part, is just kind of adapting to this new lifestyle that makes people separate from each other.
Has the government or your state support you during the hiatus?
Has the government or the state supported us?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, you know, obviously, the national government doesn't really have a mandate, a federal mandate. It's more state per state per state. Um, and you know, we as a performing company, we don't really communicate with the local governments or the state governments. They have their rules, and you know, obviously, each city, each state is different. You can tell, you know, where there are certain places that we've played that just have zero mandates, and you can just tell because nobody's wearing a mask or anything like that. And then we have places that like no, like for example, right now I'm in upstate New York, and New York has mandates that we have to abide by, so everybody's wearing a mask, and it's fine. But what we deal with more is our presenters, our theaters. They're the ones that we communicate with, and because they are a private entity, they are a private business, they can mandate or do whatever they want. So they have been very, very good about making sure that our audiences are masked. And you know, and some of those things are varying as far as their particular mandates, but they're the ones that we communicate with, and they've been very, very good about making sure that we are as safe as humanly possible while we are in the theater.
I was wondering about the theater capacity. Like, you went to see Hadestown when your wife performed. Like, in comparison to Broadway, what is it like on the tour?
You know, the houses have been great. I mean, they've still been selling. You know, there's no like intentional limit. Like, they're not saying, you know, we're only filling up to 50% or anything like that. They are trying to sell every ticket. You know, obviously some houses are bigger than others, and some sell better than others. But like you said, I saw Hadestown. It was sold out. I saw MJ the musical when I was there. I don't know if it was fully sold out, but it was very, very full. So I mean, it seems like, you know, I know Broadway, the numbers are suffering on Broadway right now, because it's also January and February are a dead season in Broadway because tourists don't go to New York because it's freezing. But as far as the tour is concerned, we've been doing very well, and I'm happily surprised, and I'm just so grateful that our audiences are still wanting to come see our show, because you know, some people are scared to be indoors with a lot of people, and I could totally understand. We are too. You know, it's something that we worry about every day, but we still get to do it, and the audiences have been great. So, I mean, I hope it keeps on going this way.
What do you want people to know and remember about the time when theaters went dark?
Oh man. Well, I guess I would say I would want them to remember and realize that, you know, not only did plays shut down or shows shut down, but the people's lives, the people who are invested in these companies, meaning the actors, the creative teams, the wardrobe supervisors, the costume designers, the lighting designers, you know, the set designers, the people, the contractors who build everything. I mean, there is a lot, you know, there's a trickle effect of Broadway shutting down, and all of these people had their livelihoods affected by this. So it was, you know, as much as it was hard for audiences to not be able to see shows that they loved, or people who were just, you know, the one thing that drove me crazy was when people would say, well, get another job. It's like, well, yes, of course, duh. But this is our livelihood. This is what we've worked our entire lives to do. And, you know, we were allowed to mourn the loss of that, right? We weren't able to do it, and it was very, very sad. So when you see a show now, don't forget that the people who you're seeing on stage and everybody who's backstage weren't able to do that for 18 months. So, you know, and we feel that gratitude too towards the audience, right? We are as grateful to see you as the audience as you are to see us. And just remember that, like, it took us a long time to get back, and those 18 months were really, really hard for us because we weren't able to do what we've worked our entire lives to do. And you know, I think once we can have that realization together, and that gratitude, it's going to create a very, very beautiful audience to performer dynamic. And that's something that I do now. Even when I bow now, I clap to the audience, because you know, it's my way of thanking them for being here.
When I read about what happened to the Toronto company of Come From Away, it was devastating.
Yeah, and I think that one, at least I can speak for myself here,
Yeah.
that caught me by surprise because I thought, my goodness, if there's one production of Come From Away that will last forever, it's the one in Toronto because, it's the most successful musical in Canadian history, right? And it had been doing so well for so long. So yeah, it was really, really sad. And we have a lot of friends in the Toronto company because when we played Canada, they came to visit us and we got to, break bread and talk and get to know each other. And they're so lovely. And yeah, I remember, talking to my friends in that company and they just were like, yeah, we were all blindsided. We had no clue that this was happening this way. So it's really, really sad. I hope that at some point, maybe another group of producers will step in and try to salvage it because it Come From Away deserves to have a company, a sit down company in Canada. It just does. So I hope it comes back.
Yeah, I mean, they waited like I think 21 months and then closed permanently just after 1 week. And the standbys, most of them didn't even have a chance to perform again.
Yeah, and when I think about it, you said 20, like you said, 21 months, right? Like that's almost 2 years, and to only get 1 week of performances is just awful. It's just awful, I mean, and that's the thing is because I mean, I don't know how their experience was, but I know for us, we were told like, listen, it's not a matter of if you're going to come back, it's a matter of when, and we're going to be, we're not going away. And I can only imagine that was a conversation they had. I don't know. I can't speak for them. But if that is the conversation they had, I can only imagine how devastating it is to sort of be like, oh, wait a minute. I guess that's not true. I guess we're expendable here. So my heart goes out to them because, they loved doing Come From Away. And they still love the show. Right. And, I know that when it's taken out like that, it's just really sad. It's just a sad situation for them, and I think thall be okay. They're all so talented and so amazing that something else will come along, I'm sure. But it's not going to be Come From Away, which is unfortunate.
Well, at least James Carl visited you, so that was
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, he was great. I loved working with James. He's so good too. My goodness, he's. I wish I could like sit in the audience and watch him as Nick. He was lovely and just a really good person. And we made sure to make him feel comfortable and he's just kind and gracious and yeah, getting to know him a little bit and talking about that experience. And, he shared the sentiments that I just mentioned, but he's great. He's great. Yeah, I'm friends with a couple of the people there too. And they're really, really great.
And Nick, we are running out of time. Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
No, I think I'm okay. I think I just wanted to say thank you again for doing this first of all, because I think the more that we can talk about what theater professionals are going through right now, we are putting ourselves at risk every night we go out there on stage, just to give the audiences, a little escape for 100 minutes to on other shows 2.5 hours. So I'm really grateful that theater's coming back, and I hope our audiences are grateful that it's coming back. And we're doing this for you guys, right? We're doing this for you and for us too, but really for you, so that you guys can escape reality and have a beautiful story of hope and kindness and humanity told to you for an hour and a half. So I'm grateful. I'm just grateful that you're giving us this platform. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Stay safe and have a great show tonight.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time again. Always a pleasure. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.